Hi, I'm Kari Lydersen. I'm a Medill Assistant Professor and leader of the Medill Investigative Lab Chicago. I'm a 1997 graduate of Medill myself and a longtime reporter in Chicago, and I'd love to tell you more about the Medill Investigative Lab Chicago and the specialization. Let me talk first a little bit about what we mean when we say investigative journalism. We're talking about obtaining and often fighting for data, public documents, court records, sometimes communications among public officials. We're doing hard-to-get interviews, and we're developing trusted relationships with sources who give us information and stories. We use all this information to analyze as a team, to map, to use data programs and other technologies to ultimately reveal problems, trends, inequities, to hold institutions and officials accountable, to quantify and document people's lived experiences, and ultimately to show the cost of injustice, to show dysfunction, bad practices, lack of accountability, and then use a social justice and solutions lens to not only reveal these problems, but actually help light the path to solutions and to making change. Solutions journalism, which is an increasingly prominent practice in the journalism world, means not just doing happy stories, but taking a hard look at different policies and best practices and seeing whether they can be replicated or scaled up in other places or other situations. We're also working with vulnerable populations and using best practices like informed consent and trust building and helping to lead the way in these practices in investigative reporting. Let me talk more about what the actual Medill Investigative Lab Chicago entails now. The lab takes place during the winter and spring quarter of the program. That would be quarters 2 and 3, after you've had the investigative seminar and other courses to get your journalism career going. We'll be working in a team of about 10 to 12 students on one investigative project over 2 quarters, also working with professional media partners to publish your work. We'll have one central group investigation that I'll have structured in collaboration with our publication partners. So as part of this group investigation, you'll be filing Freedom of Information Act requests, gathering information, doing interviews, and we'll end up with one investigative story or several with all of your bylines on it. Then students also have a chance to do their own story as part of the project or work in partnership with one other student, where you develop your own angle, maybe in a specific geographic location, on a story that's related to the larger team project. I'll give you some examples in just a minute. The first year of our Medill Investigative Lab Chicago in 2022, we focused on coal ash pollution, a relatively little known and serious environmental and public health threat nationwide. We worked with Energy News Network, a national outlet that publishes with various media around the country, and also with Detroit Public TV to do digital, interactive, and TV segments on coal ash. We had our group investigation and then 12 individual student stories. Students traveled to places including a small town in Alabama, Memphis, Tennessee, upstate New York, Jacksonville, Florida, a Native American reservation in Montana, and other places for these stories. These are just a few of the stories that resulted from our coal ash project. The students followed trucks to see coal ash dropping off the back. They tracked barges bringing coal ash from Puerto Rico to Jacksonville, Florida. They went to community meetings in small towns in Alabama and elsewhere where members were worried about coal ash polluting their wells and their water supply. For the past 2 years, our Medill Investigative Lab Chicago has focused on police response to mental health crises nationwide. We've worked with our partner Mindsight News, a national outlet that co-publishes with other media organizations and newspapers on a data-driven analysis of how police are responding to mental health crises nationwide. We filed close to 1,000 Freedom of Information Act requests in more than 100 cities and analyzed this data to take a hard look at police response to mental health crises and also how it could be done differently. This is one story that resulted about the tragic killing of a young man in Columbia, Missouri, while in a mental health crisis. We've also taken a solutions journalism lens to this project, looking at the co-response and alternate response programs where clinicians and people with lived experience respond along with police or instead of police to these emergencies. These are just a few of the other stories from this project, including with the Centro de Periodismo Investigativo in Puerto Rico and the Vail Daily in Colorado. We've also worked with the Concord Monitor and other newspapers. This is just a quick look at our Airtable database where we compile all the documents and information we've gotten from this project. So when you're working in the Medill Investigative Lab Chicago, you're obviously getting deep knowledge about a specific topic like coal ash or policing or mental health. But these skills that you get in this reporting are also completely transferable to any topic that you would want to investigate. And the experience being part of the Medill Investigative Lab Chicago has led to jobs, grants, fellowships, freelancing opportunities for the recent graduates. These logos are just a few examples where places like the Pulitzer Center, the Fund for Investigative Journalism, and the Center for Health Journalism provided grants for students to keep working on their investigative lab topic. Recent graduates have also gotten jobs with Investigate Midwest, the Investigative Project on Race and Equity, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and many other organizations. I'll just leave you with this picture of Lake Michigan and the idea that with our investigations, by revealing what lies below the surface, we can make change. Thanks for your interest in the Medill Investigative Lab Chicago. I'd love to talk with you individually and hear more about your goals and tell you more about our program. I'll provide my contact information. I look forward to talking with you and hopefully working with you in the future.